What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the third installment of Mortal, the VF Series 2 SS Ute that we're doing. Picking right up where we left off the last episode, we are dummy fitting our new long tube headers to make sure that we don't have to lift the engine to actually get them in, make sure they can fit around everything else that has to be in there. So here are our new X-Force 1 7/8" long tube headers. As you can see, super long, super duper long. You really hope to get some really good results out of them. So obviously the really long tube headers are good for a few things NA. For many things NA they're good. The disadvantage is that they don't look like they're going to be very easy to get in, and that's why we're here dummy fitting them. Alright guys, this isn't what you want to see at this point in the video, is it? So we've come across a slight issue which we have to find a solution for with just the combination of these parts. So the combination of a dual row timing set with an LSA oil pump and the Gen 4 balancer is an issue we've not yet come across. So I'm sure we've used this combination before. I'm not sure if we've done it on a Gen 4, but we've also, a lot of the times we use milling pumps before we could get these good GM high volume pumps for a decent price before we found a new supplier. So I'm not sure, we've never come across this issue before though, but we definitely have with this. So that's a solution we need to find. The other thing is it was looking pretty good for trying to get this thing sorted and together tomorrow and on the dyno and hopefully have it sorted for the weekend. But the other thing we realized when we went to start fitting the pipes is that the O2 extensions that we have are wrong because they're different. So the Series 2 VF O2 plugs are actually the same as an LSA, the same as a Club Sport. They're that weird, not quite a rhombus, but prism sort of shape. They're not your regular square 4-pin connectors. So the extensions that we've got aren't right for these O2 sensors, which means we've had to order them today, which is Thursday. So we're not going to see them till next week now anyway. So it's sort of a moot point. It was looking good, but tiny little things can just cost you so much time. So the fact that we don't have those O2 extensions will cost us dearly. It is what it is. Not much else we can do about it. So there you go, guys. A quick bit of research, bit of discussion, and looking through the pile of parts we've got out the back, we've realized that there is a very, very small difference between balances on these the Gen 4 platform between certain engines. So you never know it all, do you? Always more to learn. So there we go, that's something we know for future. It's such a minute little detail that unless you encountered this problem like this, you wouldn't even know. But anyway, we've got a solution for this anyway. We'll sort it out in the morning, but it's set us behind a good 3 hours now. Like I said, it's not that big of a deal because we've got no O2 extensions anyway. Righto guys, so it's the next day. We've been through a big saga this morning getting this thing sorted, but we've come up with a solution and now it's fixed and now we're ready to go back in the car once again. So sorted out now, we know that trick for next time. While we were waiting this morning, we sort of just started sorting out these coolers, getting them set up. So these are our coolers from PWR, one for engine, one for trans. Pretty simple setup, same sort of setup we did on the supercharged VY1 tonner and stuff like that. They're a really good cooler, although they did hold us up for quite a while waiting for them coolers. Pain, but it is what it is. So we've hung the driver's side pipe in before the engine goes in this time around because of how hard that pipe is to get in. Passenger side, not too bad. It's actually quite easy to get in, which is good because we're going to need to be able to get it in and out quite a bit to actually create our oil lines off this block. Alrighty guys, we have been ticking along with the VF. I did go to set up the time lapse, but my GoPro batteries are all flat and I haven't been filming much throughout the day because it's actually been piercing down rain, and when it's raining in the shed you can't really hear anything because it's so freaking loud on the roof. So the donk's back in there, everything's bolted up, all the ancillaries, belts, everything's on. We're just leaving the intake manifold off until we get our new O2 extensions, because where those O2 plugs are at the back of the loom there behind the heads is super hard to get to once the intake manifold's on. So we're leaving that off until we have our extensions so that we can easily get at the plugs. Rex has spent most of the day since we got the engine in making the mounts for the coolers. They're all mounted together and Rex has just painted the actual mounts for them, so they're just about ready to go in. While he was doing that, I was making the lines for the oil side of things. So these are the oil lines. They travel down there beside the alternator, through the engine mount and onto our block down there. So you can see there where they come out. I originally had wanted to run them underneath the engine mount, but the radius to get them underneath the engine mount and then back up onto the block was too severe. That was too tight of a radius for this stuff and it wanted to kink. You know, the stuff's good, but you still can't get too crazy with the radiuses because it does try and kink on you. And the other cooler is going to be the trans, which just comes off the hard lines, which are down underneath the radiator there. They just come off the hard lines instead of where it used to go through the bottom tank of the radiator inside the water. It now will just go straight to our cooler and then back. Obviously, if you're in really cold climates and stuff like that, there's a huge advantage of actually running those trans lines through the radiator, because that actually heats them up when it's really cold and gets the trans fluid up to temp in really cold climates. But obviously here in Queensland, we just don't have that sort of climate. It's not really necessary. The only real purpose of that line is going to be to cool the fluid, and our new cooler is going to do a much better job at that than the radiator is. A lot of people, when they put an aftermarket cooler in, they run both, but if we wanted to do that, we were going to have to cut up the soft lines that go to the standard radiator, the quick connects and stuff. There was no way that we would be able to actually adapt those to work with the new cooler without cutting them up, and the owner does want to be able to return all this to stock one day eventually if he wants to. Obviously, being the way Holden has gone in VF, it makes sense. I think it's a smart decision, so we're trying our best not to cut anything up or damage anything beyond reuse. So we've got the VCM OTR out. We started mounting up the OTR. Anyone who's installed one, they actually, in the kit, they move the radiator back quite a bit to fit the OTR down in there where it goes. So we had all that out to have the radiator in its final position for when we mounted our coolers. And this stage, the only real issue we've run into with it all is that the actual motor for the washer bottle hits on the cooler, which is a bit of a pain. So Rex is trying to find other options. We've got a spare washer bottle here, so we're just trying to find other options so that we can move the motor around to the bottom and just get the motor out of the way. The actual tank fits okay, and then obviously I measured it up. When he wants to go and turbo this thing, obviously he's going to have to relocate that bottle. And without the washer bottle there, from the Rio to our coolers, there's a good 90 mil is the minimum measurement. So you could fit a 3-inch core intercooler in there as well for when he goes turbo with this thing. So that's all awesome. Obviously another big advantage of having all the coolers up front is that you have these amazing thermos that Holden put on these cars. These things draw heaps of air. So your thermos work for your coolers as well. You don't have to worry about putting extra thermos in or anything like that. And that's pretty much how the front ends are all going to be set out. Honestly, the time lapse probably wouldn't have been that exciting anyway. So in the VCM kit, they also give you these tabs, which actually screw into the original radiator mount points, which actually hold the OTR. They have clips that go through those. And then they also give you other mount points which mount up here above the headlights. And these are actually to hold the other infill panel. So the VCM OTR kit, it's more than just an OTR, it's actually a complete infill panel kit for the whole front end, and it really does tidy everything up. It looks great when it's fitted, and this thing should be freaking wicked. So guys, that's how it mounts up. Looking awesome. So the top brackets are just drilled and nut-serted into that top support brace, and the bottom brackets just utilize the existing braces for the condenser.
Heaps of coolers there, mate.
Heaps of coolers, mate. So that's our lines. Sneak through there, poke through there. Boom, boom. So this is the feed in. For anyone playing at home, you always feed your coolers from the bottom. That way they feed and push air out. If you feed them into the top, you just feed oil in that drops down and they keep air in there and they lock air. The other thing is always mount them on their side or with your fittings up. Never mount them upside down with your fittings on the bottom, because you get the same result. I've seen that a lot with cars that have come here with people that mount the fittings with the fittings on the bottom. Mount the coolers with the fittings on the bottom, I should say, sorry. So that's just something for everyone playing at home. So yeah, feeds in the bottom, up, out the top, back to our block. Bob's Yarny, easy done. We've got some little dash 10 keepers, which I'll put on them. So as you can see on this side, we'll get our pipe all installed, our dipstick all set up to get around the pipe, and the pipe's looking great. But yeah, it is a bit of a task to get it in and out. So that's why we decided when the engine went in the second time, we'd have the pipe in there ready. So yeah, just a bit of Tetris to get it in and out, but it is what it is. This is what I was talking to you about, our little dash 10 keepers. So it's just like a little...
I think that's a dash 10.
Pretty sure they are. There you go. Little separator there. Looking bloody beautiful. Alright guys, we're back here working on the mighty VF. Rex is just sorting out the trans cooler lines now. See, they go over the existing hard lines and come around, and we have some AN6 push lock fittings to go into the cooler. And same thing as like I said with the other cooler, you feed it into the bottom and it comes back out the top. So we've decided just to try and remake these brackets a little bit, just to move this coolers back a little bit more. As you can see, we can afford to move them back like another good 5 mil. So Rex has moved the coolers back about 5 mil. And we're about to test fit the washer bottle again and see if the motor now clears the cooler, which we're just save us a little bit of time. Even with the cools back, it's still just it just puts just too much pressure on that the washer bottle motor for our liking. It's not right. It's not the right way to leave it. Doesn't sit right with us. We don't particularly like it. So we're going to call Harrop on Monday and have a chat with them. We know for a fact that they do a washer bottle relocation kit for the VF for their supercharger kits. So obviously with the supercharger kit, you fit a heat exchanger, which in turn you need to delete the washer bottle in that situation as well. So Harrop actually make a little washer bottle that fits up here under there, which is awesome. And with the VCM OTR comes an infill panel, which fills where this air box used to be so that it would be totally hidden. And the best thing about that is it retains the factory filler point for the washer bottle, which for us is quite important because it works into the fascia for the infill panels for the OTR and stuff, and keeps it looking really nice and tidy. Whereas if we have to remove that, you lose that filler out of the fascia. You could still mount it there, I suppose, and just have it be a dummy, but we'd like to sort of retain it as factory, utilize as much of the factory stuff as possible. So we're gonna have a chat to Harrop about potentially just getting the kit for the relocation instead of the whole supercharger kit, because we're not doing that. And we figure we may as well, because obviously when comes time to turbo this thing and we want to fit an intercooler in front of these coolers, we're going to have to relocate it at that point anyways. So anyway, that means until such a solution is decided, the front end has to pretty well stay off. So for now, the next thing to go on with is to finish installing this exhaust. As you can see, I got this side pipe in while Rex was doing those mounts and stuff. Mounted our water temp sensor in there, so it's all mounted up, ready to go. So this side's pretty much sorted. So along with the really long tube 1 7/8 extractors, for this thing we chose the 7 series twin 3-inch exhaust with the center resonators instead of the center muffler, to try and get this thing pretty loud. We had originally wanted to order this exact exhaust with the Varex mufflers. That was the plan. However, once again, there was an issue with stock, and we were going to have to wait something like 6 to 8 weeks or something for the Varex mufflers. So another one of those things where couldn't really afford that sort of time to wait. So we opted to just get the kit without the Varex. I'm pretty happy for him to sort of hear the exhaust after it's been installed and then make the decision on whether to go Varex or not. So that's what we're going to do. I do reckon this thing's going to sound pretty sick with these huge big long tubes and the twin 3-inch with the center resonators. Another thing to add, similar to the VE that we did a few episodes ago where we put the exhaust on it, we opted for the 409 stainless exhaust just because it does seem to produce that little bit of a deeper note because it's not quite as hard as something like 304 or 316. I'm not going to tack these tips until I've talked to Andrew, the owner of the car, because he's not super stoked on the rolled edges on the tips. So just going to leave them just tightened up on the Allen keys for now and not worry about tacking them there. But that's essentially the exhaust pretty well sorted out. Took a bit of attitude adjustment in fitting and stuff, getting it to work, which is pretty typical of mass-produced off-the-shelf exhaust systems. They're not perfect. They never are for the price of them, considering how much time and effort goes into building a custom one. They're still worth every penny. Got the front and rear one. As you can see, the way the dam, we just had to make a few little cuts just to clear the coolers there. Can't even see through the rears in the way. But there's just a few little notches just out of the bottom just to clear the brackets is all that was. But apart from that, the dam's still going to be there and work as it's intended to and feed these coolers heaps of air. And with that washer bottle deleted, there's well over 100 mil now of room for an intercooler core. Anyways, with all that done, that's pretty much where we're at. A bit of a stalemate until we get our O2 extension so we can put the intake on, and until we sort out our relocation for the washer bottle so we can put the front end back together. And that's all we're waiting on. So, what's up, guys? We are back with the VF now. We have our O2 extensions. They arrived yesterday, so stoked on that. They didn't take very long to get here at all, which is awesome. So at the moment, we're going to leave the front bar off the car in the hopes that that relocation kit will arrive before the owner's meant to take delivery of the vehicle. So we'll tune it with the front bar off, and if it's here, all good. If not, on Friday, we'll make the call to just put the front bar back on, and he can get away with just driving around for a little while without a washer bottle. And when the washer bottle gets here, he can just bring the car back, we'll rip the bar off and fit it, and it'll be on its merry way again. So either way, plan has been to pick this up this weekend. So there you go, guys, ready for our e-boost or boost gauge or whatever you need to eventually, and don't have to worry about doing it in the car, which can be a pain. And then we just use these little blanking caps, 1/4 inch cap, I put a tie over that, and that way later on it's super easy just to pull that off and put whatever we want on there. We don't have to pull the intake back off, so how good's that? All this being said, I think it's probably a pretty lofty idea that we could probably turbo this thing without having to pull the intake manifold off. Alrighty guys, moving along here, getting together. So, as you can see, OTR's on, and this is how the infill panels go on. I've just sat them here for now just for illustrative purposes so you can see. Alrighty, so that was just turning it over to get some oil pressure up. So now we can go ahead and put plugs in and finish it off and hit the key and hear it come to life. Righto, so it's all looking pretty good. We just did the ATF, the transfer fluid, while it was running. Topped that up, got that all right. At the moment, we're just doing a full just nip up of all the exhaust. Now that it's been through a heat cycle, just make sure everything's sort of tight and nice and good. Apart from that, we'll drop it down, check the engine oil, make sure it's all right, but it's ready to hit the dyno now.